Well, very good afternoon to all of you and welcome to Parallel Technical Session 5 in Hall A. It is my pleasure to introduce the chair and co-chair of today's session. The chairman, Dr. Pradeep Kumar, is a senior principal scientist at the CSIR CBRI Roorkee. He completed his MTech and PhD from IIT Roorkee. He is ex-senior principal scientist and professor at Association of Scientific and Innovative Research. He was awarded long-term DAD fellowship by Government of Germany and worked at the University of Essen during 91-92. He represented 4-member Indian delegation to visit Norway during the year 2006. He is actively engaged in R&D at CSIR CBRI, particularly on ground improvement and design of foundation work with respect to weak soil deposits. He also served as the Honorary Secretary of Indian Geotechnical Society for 2 terms till 2020, and he represented the National Executive of Indian Geotechnical Society. Welcome you, sir. The co-chair of today's session, Dr. B. Janaki Ramaiah. He is an assistant professor in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at IIT Tirupati. He obtained his PhD from IIT Delhi. Dr. Ramaiah's areas of interest are geotechnical and geo-environmental engineering, soil dynamics, ground improvement, and in situ testings. And he published more than 20 research papers in reputed international and national journals as well as conferences. Welcome you, sir. So it is a pleasure to have Dr. Pradeep Kumar and Dr. Janaki Ramaiah with us. And also I welcome BVS Vishwanathan, today's keynote speaker, and welcome to all the participants. Now I hand over the session to the chairs, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Srivalsa. So this is at the outset, I would like to thank the organizers to offer me the chair position of this technical session, where we have some wonderful research works to be presented by young researchers across various institutions. I am sure that all of us virtually present in this session, including me, are looking forward for an in-depth paper presentation by Professor BVS Vishwanathan from IIT Bombay. I happened to meet him about 7-8 years back. He is a very dynamic person. He will be presenting the SOAP lecture on studies on modeling of dynamic compaction in geocentrifuge. Apart from this, I see a total of 5 papers are to be presented, which focuses on various technical aspects of ground improvement. These papers are to be presented by Mr. Malay Kumar Dev, Mr. Sufiani Ghani, Ms. Rani B. Wath, Ms. Srivanshi, and Ms. B. Manjula Devi. So all these studies are of great importance from the point of view of achieving a sustainable and viable green solution, which will not only be beneficial for our environment, but also will be helpful in achieving an economic engineering solution for the existing challenges that Mother Soil throws on us. If all these speakers are present, then I would like to cordially welcome all of you, including the co-chair of this session, Dr. B. Janaki Ramaiah, IIT Tirupati. Let us follow the time limitations strictly during the paper presentation for a well-planned session. At the end of this session, I request co-chairman to please propose the vote of thanks. And with this, I would like to hand over the platform to co-chairman, Dr. B. Janaki Ramaiah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pradeep sir, for your introductory remarks, and also the session coordinator, Dr. Srivalsa, for having me introduced and giving me opportunity to serve as a co-chair. Without further waste of time, we will move on to the sessions. Now I would like to request, first, we have a session on the state-of-the-art practice by the towering personality, Professor BVS Vishwanathan, I would like to have formally introduce him, although he doesn't require special introduction, but it's a formality. So, Professor Vishwanathan Garu is a professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, from February 2009. Professor Vishwanathan has more than 30 years of experience in teaching and research. He obtained his doctorate from Ruhur.
Fine. Yeah, it happens. Sorry.
Yeah.
I will continue. So, Professor Vishwanathan holds 2 patents and he published more than 170 papers in reputed journals and conferences. And his research interest includes centrifuge modeling of geotechnical problems, geosynthetics and ground improvement, environmental geotechnics, coal ash utilization, etc., including natural hazard mitigation. So it's a pleasure and honor to have Professor BVS Vishwanathan amongst us. And now I hand over the session to Professor. Please.
Okay. So I think Janaki has come.
The session.
Yeah, sir, the state-of-the-art practice lecture is 30 minutes and we will have followed by the 5 minutes question and answer session. So we will be enjoying the lecture.
Actually. So, so with the permission from the chairman and co-chairman and the organizers, this is a long-standing conference. Finally, like OTT, we actually are doing online. Otherwise, we would have got a the benefit of meeting all of you. So I'd like to thank the organizers for giving this wonderful opportunity, the 7th ICRAGI conference. And in this conference, particularly when the organizers contacted me, they told me that, this is a state-of-the-art lecture wherein they would like me to present a research topic as well as, and mostly, how earthquakes can be modeled in a geocentrifuge. So here, in this particular slide, you're seeing some 3 new terms. I can say that modeling, it's not a new term. Dynamic compaction is one of the terms now every geotechnical engineer is aware of that, a geocentrifuge. So geocentrifuge, there is also biocentrifuge. So any centrifuge which is actually used for geotechnical applications, it can be called as a geotechnical centrifuge or biocentrifuge. It's a geocentrifuge. And this particular work is done by my, co-researcher, Dr. Saptarishi Kundu, an excellent PhD student. I always call him a COVID graduate. He just graduated before the COVID, March 2020, and then the COVID came. And thank you for the nice introduction. And so I'd like to, introduce, these 3 concepts, how we can actually do the modeling of dynamic compaction and how the scaling can be achieved and what are the problems and, how this can be done through a geocentrifuge. The centrifuge or a centrifuge modeling or centrifuge-based physical modeling is nothing but a small-scale physical modeling technique in which a small-scale model is subjected to high gravities by rotating about a vertical axis in a horizontal plane. So that is one of the physical modeling technique. Suppose if you don't have this avenue of physical modeling, then you are having this 2 options. One is to go with full-scale physical modeling. Other one is called small-scale physical modeling. When you do with a full-scale physical modeling, you are actually doing in the field, okay? And you are actually recording everything in the real time, real ground conditions, real motion, everything and all, okay? Many times it's very difficult for us to do, controlled tests in the field. But if you are doing, that is regarded as one of the best avenue for geotechnical engineers even today. Then if you are not able to do physical modeling at full scale, then the next is when it comes to that is 1G. That is called 1G modeling, which we are very much familiar. Okay. So in the 1G modeling, when we do, there is a possibility that, the tau is a function of sigma, where the confinement effects, the stress effects comes into picture. That means that if a model is reduced, let us say 10-meter height of thickness of the model is reduced by, let us say, 10, n is equal to 10. That means that the thickness of the model is only 1 meter. So vertical stress at the bottom of the model is only 10 into, say, 20, so around 200 kilopascals. 200 by 10 is only 20 kilopascals is the vertical stress. So we know that the performance of a soil when you're actually having a 20 kilopascal stress and 200 kilopascal stress. A 200 kilopascal stress is the real time, the real stress, but what you're actually having a scale down stress, which is, 20 kilopascals. If you are doing some sort of, for certain type of soils, certain category of tests, if you are doing 1G model tests, many times they give some information, but I'm not actually against about the 1G modelers, but they try to give some sort of, misleading information. So I will begin this lecture by acknowledging the, excellent support which we receive from our centrifuge facility staff, particularly the person who runs the equipment, the person who makes the models, and the person who actually instruments the models and all those things and all. So it's an excellent combination. With that only we could achieve, whatever I'm actually going to share to you. So going to the next actually, in order to, why we are doing all these, the second term, what dynamic compaction is basically, the typical failures which actually can cross, this is the, the theme of the conference is that, how the earthquakes can actually create, distress. I have seen that Professor Gopal Madabushi and Professor Al-Gamal and other experts are actually going to speak. And here, these type of things, when they're actually happening in our case, and they actually can cause alarming situations to us. And despite of, the, virus problems, we can also have, the problems due to this particular natural hazards. So what you see here is that, what I understand is that Christchurch, liquefaction, which actually has been put by NDMA. And there are also some building failures. As you can see that some typical, failure of a road and in the building collapse. So these things actually will cause, alarming situations as far as this thing is concerned. And if you are able to, try to find the avenue for improving, then, we actually have got many methods for the countermeasures. So I'm actually concentrating here, what are the countermeasures against, liquefaction. Let us say that, we all know the liquefaction, and methods to prevent this or counter the occurrence of liquefaction means you actually have to do a correct improvement, ground improvement. So one of the methods actually increasing density, solidification, and adjust of the grain size distribution, and some lowering of the degree of saturation. Below the foundation, they actually try to pump the air so that the degree of saturation of the soil is decreased, and the less the degree of the saturation, and less susceptible to the liquefaction. And there are some, replacement methods by vibroflotation, replacing the, the stones, soil with stones and densifying the surrounding soil. And our principle actually comes somewhat in the densification method. And there are also some methods like dissipation of the excess pore water pressure, which is the dissipation and control of the pore water pressure. And there's, frankly, I must tell, the shear strain restraint method is one method, which in fact I have not really come across that one. So there are a number of avenues for improving the soil from the liquefaction. So we are actually going to select one of the methods. What I can say is that how we can actually densify the soil with the help of, method, which is called, one of the methods called dynamic compaction. So before that, why we need to model the earthquake in the centrifuge? Is there any relevance is there? One thing is that, the earthquake centrifuge modeling is, one of the natural phenomenon which occurs in the field. And it actually has got the ill effects, damaging the structures, and, there can be subjected to some sort of, distress in the structures. Okay. though the lot of work is actually happening, very little quantitative field data exists in the response of the soil deposits, as well as the geotechnical structures for a strong motion. And the opportunity is basically to study the phenomenon of earthquake-induced liquefaction, the principle driving this thing. Many people actually have done the classic works, which I'm not going into detail. But in this, what centrifuge model testing offers, and basically is a unique opportunity to actually test the performance of the structures before the earthquake actually what happens. In fact, now with the advent of the the cameras, high-speed cameras, we can see how the structure is actually performing during the earthquake. Otherwise, without these things, we used to see before the earthquake, after the earthquake, then we used to see. But now with the advent of the cameras, which are actually having 500 frames per second or 1000 frames per second, they are able to record what is actually happening before the earthquake actually happens and during the earthquake when it is being subjected to that one. So this gives an opportunity for us to simulate that natural event in a controlled manner and understand its behavior at its scale, at its full scale, and try to see its behavior. And if that particular remedial measure is actually working for us, then it actually is like our design is going with confidence. It's like you are designing with the confidence. That's what actually many countries believe, that analyze, test, and construct. Analyze means you do whatever the analysis you want to do, whatever the numerical modeling you want to do. Test is nothing but appropriate testing, and construct. So ATC policy is the one which is actually, if you are able to get it to our arena, then it is actually going to benefit us very nicely. So otherwise, suppose if you are not having this avenue, the only way is to instrument the full-scale structure and wait for the earthquake event. We are also working on some other, hazard, natural hazards like rainfall and other flooding and all those things and all. If you wanted to understand their behavior, you have to construct a structure and create a flooding. Or if you wanted to understand this, slope subjected to rainfall, you have to construct a full-scale slope and put it in the campus and wait for the rainfall to occur. But we also don't know which intensity is coming and how long it will come and what is going to come and all. But if we are having a controlled earthquake or controlled rainfall or controlled flooding, there is a possibility that we'll be able to understand the response of a small-scale model when it is at the full-scale stresses. So simulation of earthquake conditions in the centrifuge requires careful consideration. And one thing here is that it is not very easy. In fact, we are not yet successful in creating, base motion. But with God's grace, when everything goes on well, should be able to place a base motion creator at IIT Bombay. And the selection of the model container. In fact, here the non-reflecting boundaries are very much important. Like a lot of work also has happened in India, like Professor S.K. Prasad, who actually has done PhD in Japan, also brought technology of laminar containers. In IISc Bangalore also, I think Professor Sitaram and others, Professor Madhavi Lata, they have used non-reflecting boundaries containers and all for 1G model testing. So this is very interesting one, non-reflecting boundaries, and maintaining the leak proofness of that is very, very difficult, very, very important. And then, what I'm actually highlighting here is that appropriate fluid in the soil. Why there is a requirement of having an appropriate fluid in the soil, which we are going to discuss. But I actually said that in modeling earthquake, one is you have to create a powerful base motion creator, and that what we call as a shaking system. And second one is that in a proper earthquake model container. Generally, we have got, hexagonal shape containers, rectangular containers, or then there is a need for tweaking with the model pore fluid, which is very, very difficult. Okay, now let us consider this. I picked from my lecture notes where you have got an embankment which is having a prototype dimensions. Let us say L is the length dimension, and this having a certain height has been subjected to some sinusoidal motion. Let us say that the displacement is given by amplitude in prototype, sine 2 pi fp tp. Tp is the period, fp is the frequency. And when you differentiate once, you will get the displacement of the small element. And when you differentiate once, you will get the acceleration, which is nothing but minus of 2 pi fp whole square ap sine 2 pi fp tp. So this is the amplitude, the perturbance, which is actually subjected in the field. Now let us assume that when we are actually trying to consider the small scale physical modeling, that L is not L, which is L by N. And all this element also, if it is having a dimensions of dx, dy, dz, dx by n, dy by n, and dz by n, the volume is reduced by 1 by n cube. But if the stress is sigma here, the stress is also in a small scale model is actually sigma. So let us now try to consider that you are having a model which is Lm is equal to Lp by n, and I'm having a small element which is dx by n, dy by n, and dz by n. And it is also subjected to same identical motion, same motion or identical motion. Xm is equal to Am, amplitude in model, and sine 2 pi fp tp. Suppose the amplitude in the prototype is say 15 mm. In the model, it will be 15 by n. N nothing but the gravity at which actually it has been subjected. That means that if you scale down this by, let us say, 30 gravities, then Lm is equal to n is equal to 30. Lm is equal to Lp by n. Then this n is equal to 30. When I see this one here, if it is made of say material gamma, uniform material gamma, then in this case at this point the stress is nothing but sigma v is equal to gamma into z. Gamma if I write into rho g z. Okay, so sigma v is equal to rho g z, but mass density is same in model and prototype. With that, what will happen when the gm becomes ngp and this hp is equal to or lm hp is equal to hm by n, then what will happen? The stress here is equal to sigma v is equal to sigma v in model is equal to rho g hp. So that means that if a small scale model is subjected to if you are scaling down by n times, and if it is subjected to n time gravity level, then there is a stress equality. When stress and strains are equal, the response of a model will be close to that in the field. So when the model is rotating about a vertical axis in horizontal plane, assume that you are actually seeing the plan view. What you are seeing in the screen is the plan view, and you are seeing the model like this. And if this is the gravity level, of course, we are also having when the model is subjected to high gravities, we are having some errors, or we can say limitations. They are like variations in the gravity level, variations of the gravity level to horizontal distance, and vertical stresses, errors due to vertical stresses. And there is also one more error or effect which is called Coriolis effect, that is also going to affect our results very, very severely. Now let us assume that this is the velocity that is with which the model is rotating. So if ng is equal to r omega square, then I can say that v is equal to r omega, the model will be rotating at a certain velocity. Okay, so if you are actually trying to understand about 100 gravities, at 100 gravities, the model will be rotating at a speed which is like a hurricane, which actually will be subjected in the chamber. And we do this type of research at IIT Bombay, and where we actually have got 4.5 meter radius large beam centrifuge facility available at IIT Bombay, and which actually has got a new ornament very recently, which actually has got high-speed data acquisition system, which about 108 channel data acquisition system has been in place now, and we are able to acquire the data with and without wireless connection. That is one of the recent addition which actually happened during the COVID. Okay, now with this what will happen is that if xm is equal to amplitude times in model sine 2 pi of tm, and the displacement is nothing but an amplitude, when I take this one amplitude, and velocity, when I do the differentiation, I'll get this one, this coefficient, acceleration, this one. Now what I will do is that if the model, the linear dimensions have scale factors 1:n, and acceleration is increased n times, that is 1:1:n, then in order to maintain the similarity, if the amplitude has to be 1/n, the frequency has to be n. That means that if you understand 1 Hz to 5 hertz frequency is the earthquake normal, which is reported 1 cycle per second to 5 hertz, 1 hertz to 5 hertz. Let us say if you are actually thinking about modeling 1 hertz earthquake, that means that the base motion creator or a shaking table should actually have n times of that of the frequency what you are thinking in the field. That is nothing but n times the frequency in the prototype. That means that if 1 hertz means at 60 G, 60 cycles per second, 60 hertz. That means that 60 cycles per second. When you say that frequency is actually n times, the time is 1 by, that means the time actually is actually reduced. That means that the moment you open your eyelid and close, the earthquake has come and ended. So that means that you need an event or event recorder wherein you are able to record the data very, very efficiently. So for example, let with Fm by Fp is equal to n and amplitude in model and prototype is 1 by n, then the velocity component is 1. You see that one. And another thing is that the time in model, that's what I'm telling, the earthquake, let us say 60-second duration. That means that at 60 G, in 1 second, beginning of the earthquake and ending of the earthquake, it happens. Now let us say we are having two categories of models. Suppose if you are having an embankment resting on clay, okay, or embankment resting on saturated sand. Now in this case, what will happen when the embankment resting on the clay during the earthquake, it is experiencing seismic perturbance with the Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n. And once it is subjected to, after post that one, it can be subjected to, some dissipation, very, very slow in clay. But if you are having a situation where, the seismic perturbance, which actually creates the rise of the pore water pressure and the dissipation because of the virtue of the permeability of the material on which the earthquake disturbance is created, if both are actually, occurring simultaneously, then you actually have a conflict whether to adopt Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n or Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n square. What is the, the serious effect of that is that before your earthquake completed, Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n square. That is the seepage event or any diffusion event is scaled down as Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n square, which is actually much faster than Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n. We are thinking that frequency is n times, earthquake itself is actually faster, but the dissipation itself is going to be very, very faster. So here, there is a scale conflict actually happens. This need to be resolved. How we can resolve, I will also tell you. There are two methods. One is that, reduce the permeability of the soil. There are Bruce Scooter, Professor Bruce Scooter and others. What they have done is that we know that K is equal to CD ton square, Hazen's formula. Okay, so D10 in model by D10 in prototype, I will 1 by root n. I will scale down. I will actually shear it. I will stud the particles such that I will bring it to 1 by, when the permeability also becomes 1 by n. So reducing the permeability by shredding the particles. But what will happen? The response of the soil to the loading, the soil constitutive behavior may be altered. The soil response is different. So we actually have, if you are actually having a sandy soil and if you make a silty soil, and if you say that both sand and silt are identical, which is not possible to understand or digest. The another avenue is that people said is that if you are able to increase the viscosity without actually sacrificing the effective stresses, there is a possibility that we will be able to meet this requirement. So this is actually valid for fine sands or sands with less amount of silt, and not valid for clayey soils, because those who have worked with the clays, they will understand even to do a consolidated undrained test in the clay, it will take 7 to 14 days, or into consolidation, it will take around 14 days for consolidation. It's very, very difficult. Okay, so even to get the sample saturated by using delta U by delta sigma 3, by using the so-called pore pressure parameters, very difficult. But if you are actually having fine sands and sands with some fines up to 10%, I'm talking about non-plastic fines, there is a possibility that we can actually replace the pore fluid. How we can replace? Let us see that first method 1 is ruled out because shredding of soil particles, which is very, very difficult. Now, we all know that, while teaching permeability, we actually introduce a term called coefficient of permeability. and K, absolute permeability, and unit weight of water, and kinematic viscosity of water. Okay, so K is the absolute permeability, is a function of Kozny-Kármán equation when you take into consideration, or a Taylor equation when you consider into that. And higher the specific surface area, less is the permeability. All those things we know. So K is the absolute permeability, which is a function of soil skeleton. If you are able to have identical soil skeleton, that Km and Kp both are same. Gamma W is nothing but the unit weight of water. Mu is the 1 centi-stroke at 20 degrees is for water at 20 degrees. That is the kinematic viscosity of water. Now let us write Km is equal to capital K suffix m, gamma m, nu m, and this prototype also I do write that, and I put Km by Kp when I substitute here, assuming that I have unit weight of water going to increase at high gravity, so Km n gamma p, and assume that I have got a pore fluid which is n times viscous than prototype. So I have taken n mu p into Vp by gamma p. With that, what will happen? Km by Kp is equal to 1. If I don't substitute this one, I will get Km by Kp is equal to n. The Km by Kp is equal to n means the model actually has got higher permeability. With that, what will happen? The diffusion scale factor I will get as 1 by n square. Now, I am having problem with Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n square. In order to make my dynamic scale factor with the CPS scale factor, what I'm trying to do down is that I'm trying to slow down my diffusion event by reducing the permeability. So Vm is equal to Km-Im, Vp is equal to Kp-Ip. So with that, I will get Vm is equal to Vp. That's Darcy velocity or flow velocity, which is same, but Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n. So with that, I'm able to match these two. Previously, it was 1 by n square. Now I have got both the scale factors to equal 1. So this means that you actually need to substitute water with the conventional another pore fluid. We are having several pore fluids in the market. Like for example, 100 centi-stroke of silicon fluid is 100 times more viscous than water, but has virtually same density. But it is actually little bit heavier than water. Suppose if you are having a higher viscosity, like mercury, if it is having higher, let us say higher density, there is a possibility that if I have two stresses in model and prototype, they don't match with each other. Then we have the again response of the model and prototype will be a problem. So with this, if you are able to replace the pore fluid and Km is equal to Kp, if I am able to get that, the time scale factor for the diffusion is equivalent to 1 by n, and as well as that of equal to that one as same, then there is a possibility that Tm by Tp is equal to 1 by n. So here I wanted to explain for the people here, excess pore water pressure and time, if I plot it, if you are actually having in the field, what will happen when there is a seismic perturbance at a particular point below the model in the full scale structure, this is how the excess pore water pressure generates. Okay, with the centrifuge model with water, there is a rise and then dissipation takes place. So here with water as the pore fluid and the accumulation of UU was reduced due to high permeability. Okay, but what I need is somewhat closer to this. I wanted to mimic the field. So in order to do that, I actually need a pore fluid. So I need to slow down the rate of pore water pressure distribution. If you are able to slow down the rate of pore water pressure distribution with a substitute pore fluid, then there is a possibility that we are able to mimic what actually happens in the field. If you are able to do this, then the response is actually comes like silicone oil, metallose, glycerin. So glycerin water mixers also have been used before metallose, but you don't know whether the student is actually crying because of work or because of the the so-called use of glycerin. So that is also dangerous. Now, in the very recently, the centrifuge modelers, I should thank the centrifuge modelers, is that methyl ether or methyl cellulose, one of the products which is used in bakery, this thing, that is actually been brought to the centrifuge, this thing, very costly. And that is actually going to give you the so-called flexibility in the this thing. So in order to do this one, okay, before that I will get connected again how we can actually model that one. So let us say now I have also said that dynamic compaction. So this dynamic compaction is something, this is in German geotechnical engineering handbook, and which is actually published in 1996. So where they have published actually this, dynamic compaction is nothing but dropping of a, known weight from a known height. Okay, it's actually is a potential energy. So when you do like this in primary pass, this is called PRID spacing, 6 meter by 6 meter, and then do here and here, then there is a possibility that entire ground can be, impacted. The equipment requirement is very, very small, but there are some conditions like, particle velocity should not be high, other nearby structures should not be there. But here, if you have got a potential energy in model and prototype is 1 by n cube. So use of centrifuge modeling is one of the, how to use that one is actually what, is the main crust of this thing. So basically the pounding creates a depression, what we call crater, and each drop low location, and in the process it actually produces an aerial settlement and also displaces the soil. So if you look in the overall, you will see that dynamic compaction creates some sort of, this is called drop height, and the tamper. People actually have varied the tamper shapes, square, octagonal, triangular, and people actually have found that the octagonal one is actually effective, but we have actually taken a circular one. Okay, with that what will happen? Enhanced geotechnical properties, reduced settlements, reduced liquefaction potential, and stability of the structure is retained, sustainable and cost-effective method. And wherein you actually have got, these are the depth of improvements. So if you see for granular soils is something like 4 to 5 meters, definitely you can actually get the improvement depth. So this is how, this is one of the octagonal tamper or pounder which is actually used. So when you do like this, you will be covering the entire loose area. Very, very nice. And I've noticed that in India, many people are actually using. But one thing I request you to note down, 10 to 20 meters is the height. Even a reduce, by in centrifuge modeling by n, 20 by n meters. That means that very difficult for me to put a crane in the high gravities and do that. So for that, we need a mechanism. So this particular technique was actually put forward by Minard in 1975, wherein, the illustration of the dynamic compaction, what he said is that whenever a drop is actually created, then it actually creates some sort of, P and S waves, and the Rayleigh waves are created. So you can see that.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. Another 5 minutes max.
Okay. Okay. So this is, you actually have got densification actually takes place. Okay. So this is when you model this one in the prototype, when you are having the impact velocity is nothing but root to GLC. Initial velocity is 0. With that, you will get 19.21 meter per second. And when you do this in centrifuge, so you can see that same impact velocity, I'm able to do that with V is equal to root to GH, but G is equal to NG. And with that 19.81 meter per second, I'm able to maintain. This is at 50 gravity. But let us say that if I'm actually modeling some 20 meters and 20 tons, then, I actually have the potential energy which is modeled. So this is how the potential energy which is required, potential energy which is in model. So with that, based on that, the dynamic compaction can be created in the model. This is how the problem which we explained. So based on, lot of deliberations, we actually have reduced the scaling loss. So here also, the frequency of the blows will be n times, and the duration is 1 by n time, the duration between each blow. So we actually have two soils, one is sand and one is silty sand. And you can see that because we wanted to replace with the viscous fluid, then we actually have tried different viscosities with the metallose what we have taken. And we found that it is in line with the results which are published elsewhere. And we also have seen what will happen to its viscosity over a period of time with the time in days, and how whether the tau versus sigma, whether it is okay or not. And we also seen how from the iodometer test, the constrained modulus at 150 kilopascals, how you are getting. And we also have seen with increase in viscosity, how the permeability of the sand is actually decreasing. All those things we have done. And we actually have developed a model which is having a container, and the permanent markers, which we have used particle image velocimetry. And this is how we have placed the transducers. And this is how, we placed the accelerometers with vertical and horizontal direction. And this is the backside of the container. And here we have actually, in our paper is there in the ASTM Geotechnical Testing Journal. And those who are interested can actually refer the paper. And here what you are seeing is the guiding rods. As I was mentioning to you, the Coriolis effect is actually going to cause a big problem. So if the tamper is lifted up, is actually used to create a problem. So this is what we have done with sand and silty sand with water table we have done. So this is how the setup which is actually about to be tested. So we have put a DC motor and we actuated this one, and we have designed a very nice mechanism, and we have put perpendicular to the perspex glass so that we'll be able to view from the camera. So you can see it will take 1 or 2 minutes. So let me just see whether it is working or not. Let me see. Normal presentation, which is works. But, it happens is that the tamper moves on, down and down. And there are 16 drops have been given. So with that, what will happen is that you will see the densification, which is not coming here. Now I think it's coming. Maybe the organizers, I request you for 5 more minutes, Professor Janaki Ramaya.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So you can see that as the drops are being done, so you can see this is happening at 30 gravities. Please understand. And when you see the parallelly, the excess pore water pressure generations also can be seen. So this is how the tamper is actually working, and the model is rotating about a vertical axis in a horizontal plane. And what we are seeing through a camera here, because of that, we are seeing this view. And this is the accelerometer which is recording. And let me see whether. Now you can see the excess pore water pressure generation is actually coming. And the front elevation also, you are seeing the tamper hitting the, tamper hitting this thing. And these are the guide rods. These guide rods are very much important because when the centrifuge is rotating about a vertical axis, any movement of the object within the model is subjected to Coriolis acceleration, which is actually laterally drifts backwards. In order to keep that in place, we actually have to really struggle to resolve this one and then solve that one. And the moment we solve that one, the PhD student completed the work. Okay. So you can see how for each blow, how the excess pore water pressure is being developed. You can see, that is total. You will see that 16 peaks. That means that 16 drops. Why 16 drops? Because, mostly for each location, 16 drops are actually adopted in the field. You can see this one is circular. That actually indicates a proof that the water table is circular because water is not having any shear strength. Because of that, it will actually take the circular shape. So several 3 tests have been done. And what you can see is that, this is with the, this is with water. You can see that rapid dissipation. But when you have the HPMC, the dissipation is actually somewhat slower. When you have got with the silty sand, there is an excess very high pore water pressure. And when we have used this one, what you can see that dissipation is found to be very, very slow. So, this we have used further for the particle image velocimetry to get the, the so-called pore fluid distribution and increase in densifications for each drop for different with water as well as HPMC. And our paper, which is there in ASC, Geotechnical Geo-Environmental Engineering also discusses, for those who are interested can refer that particular paper. And what you can see is that this is the depth of the crater improvement. Up to 5 meters, we could actually record the improvement of the, the so-called increase in the relative density. You can see delta RD, that much is the increase in the improvement. So these are the, peak particle velocities, ground accelerations which are recorded. Away from the location, you can see that the velocity is found to be, decrease. And we found that they are actually, in fact, there are measures also which we can do for mitigating them. So what I wanted to say from the major this thing is that, one is that, of course, why I have shown earthquake modeling is that because there is a requirement which is connection which is that there is a requirement of modeling pore fluid. But otherwise, the present research work basically first time, as far as I am, to the best of our knowledge, HPMC was used for dynamic compaction. And that too, we have not explored for higher fines. In fact, we are able to use for higher fines, and with some other modifications, then we can actually generate much more information. And basically, this research work presents an effectiveness of the dynamic compaction for reducing the liquefaction potential for loose sand deposits. In fact, we are now trying to apply this technique for the loose municipal solid waste deposits, so that we can see that because the municipal solid waste deposit also, it is also like a sand only, very high permeability, but only difference is that high compressibility. So if you are able to use this, there is a possibility that we can increase the landfill capacities and all. So basically, this is what we wanted to show. In fact, we wanted to do for multiple points. Now we are actually extending that particular work, and the results can be subsequently employed to focus on the effects of the expensive field trials and all. So with this, I have come to the end of my presentation, and I would like to thank the chairman and co-chair and the organizers for giving this opportunity to share some of our ideas with you. And I'll be very happy if I'm not able to answer your questions, we'll come back with answers with some deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Viswanathan Garu. That was really a nice presentation, and even explaining each and every term. It's actually centrifugal modeling is not actually a routine topic in every geotechnical engineering. So I really enjoyed your presentation, and I feel the participants also enjoyed the presentation. And also you explained the importance of the pore fluid viscosity and selection of right one, properly modeling the effects and all. Very nice presentation. Now I request the participants, the floor is open for a question and answer session. Please drop your questions in the chat box so that I can pick the one and I can pose it to the speaker.
Yeah, the attendees, I think there are about more than 100 attendees attending on the live 3D virtual platform. So those who are listening, you can see a question and answer tab on the top left. On top left, near to the adjacent to the lobby, in between lobby and halls, there is a Q&A tab. You need to click there and ask your questions, please.
Or some of them can directly, they can ask also.
On the live streaming, it is not possible, sir. But on the Zoom, we can directly ask the questions.
Okay. Yes. I'm seeing only 11 participants here, but I think it is streaming somewhere, no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All these participants are only the speakers and presenters.
Okay.
All the delegates are there on the 3D platform.
Okay.
I see there is one question from one guest. He is asking how to model the soil particle size.
Oh. Yeah, very important, very good question. That is here what we call, particularly when you have got sand, the particle size effect, what we call, and this effect will decrease with the decrease in the size of the particle. So if you are having, some fine sand particles, so we always see, suppose if the tamper is there, tamper is actually hitting the soil, we see that it is supported by innumerable number of particles. Let us say that if you are having a foundation is supported by, let us say, 4 particles, then definitely the particular one is going to affect with the scale effect. But here, if you are having a same foundation model, but with which is supported by more number of particles, then there is a possibility that we can say that the particle effect is minimized. So generally we see that what we call dz by b, or b is the dimension of the, in this case tamper, is actually more than 30 or 40, then we can say that it is free from the particle size effects. But here we have taken very fine sand, which is passing 0.425 mm, and also some silt which is having very fine particles. So the particle size effects are not there, but we actually have taken into consideration. Yes, particle size effects are going to come if you are actually model some rockfill dam or some other materials, yes, they are going to come. But here it is actually taken care by resolving the so-called particle size effect.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions, please put it in the chat box or Q&A session. So regarding your future work on municipal solid waste modeling in dynamic compaction, that will be really good. Of course, it will be challenging because there are few studies that are now across the world. Only 2 people, to my knowledge, have taken up the real dynamic compaction in MSW.
Yes, yes.
That will be good works.
Yes, You wanted to do, you can come to Mumbai.
Sure. This is my area because my PhD is on municipal solid waste.
I know that. I know. Our world is small.
Yes. Okay. Srival, are there any other questions on the 3D platform?
No, I am not seeing any other question. Yeah.
Okay. Dear participants, we strongly encourage you to discuss. This is not just my presentation or your presentation. It's just a forum. We can discuss a lot of things. Please feel free to pose the questions or clarifications. Let us use the best opportunity of all the knowledge that is coming on this platform. I don't see any questions further here.
Yeah.
If you have any clarifications, you can directly contact Professor Vishwanathan Garu or through our organizers. We can transfer the questions.
People can contact me through email or something like that. I think I have given. I'm not sure whether I have given my email ID in the beginning.
So thanks a lot, sir, for the nice presentation, and we can move on to the regular presentations now.
So I think my presentation is unshared, no?
It's unshared, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And do I need to be there till 4 o'clock? What is the?
Not required, sir. Not necessary.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Anyhow, I'm available actually for any questions that they want.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, sir.
So thank you very much, Professor Srivalsa, and also Sitaram and others, Vijaka. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Pradeep Kumar. And I think Pradeep Kumar was he went 1 year before to Germany. Okay. 91, 92. Okay. And with Janaki Ramaya, I know while he was doing PhD, I went to IIT Delhi and I met him at that time. And happy to see all of you. And thank you very much.
Sir,
thank you, Professor.
Just a small question popped up, sir, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
It's a small question also. How much a centrifuge costs?
Okay. Yeah. See, how much centrifuge setup costs? It depends upon the radius. If you are actually looking for, one relationship, the cost of the centrifuge increases by R cube times. If R is small, your cost of the centrifuge is small. So let us say, but smaller the centrifuge, higher are the errors. Smaller centrifuge, smaller models, higher are the errors. So if R is equal to 1 meter or 2 meters, R is equal to 2 meters, which will cost you, if you wanted to commercially, they are available. It is about maybe 1 crore or so. Okay. But R is equal to 4 meters or 5 meters, you require big civil works and all those things and all. That will cost definitely, to the best of my knowledge, about 10 to 15 crores. What we have got in IIT Bombay was the custom built, and definitely that one will not come at whatever 5 crores at that time what we got from the government. It will not. The commercial available centrifuges are very, very costly. So recently I wanted to do something, and they said that you have to change this and that and all. They have given a quotation for 100 crores for me for the changing of the equipment. If there are 15 research scholars are there, and if I say that everything is changed, then it will take another 3-4 years for me to reinstall, commission that and done. So the larger the radius, the costliest is the cost of the centrifuge increases. Yeah. Any other question?
Yeah, we have one more question, and this will be the last question because we are already lagging. This is the question from Mr. Shravan Kumar. Sir, how the dimensions of the model are maintained stable as we are going beyond 50G in centrifuge test?
Yeah, suppose if you are having a footing element, it is made with a rigid element like aluminum or something like that, it will be maintained. And if you are having, suppose, we have to see, for example, if you are trying to do a slope, and if the slope fails before the earthquake or slope fails before the rainfall, then there is no point, it is already dead body. Okay, so the body has to be alive. So that means that what we have to do is that we have to do the preliminary analysis and see that that stability analysis, whatever we talk about, that will help in keeping that model alive. For example, whatever I have shown is a plain model, nothing will happen. But if you are having a slope, let us say subjected to seepage, and before I induce seepage, slope fails, there is no use of seepage effect on the slope. So it is like that. Generally what we do is that we try to select a factor of safety which is around 1.1. That means that just stable without water. Moment water comes, the slope collapses. Okay. Basically here we select these dimensions such that we are able to create failures. And if you are using some remedial measure, let us say some reinforcement, something, then we will try to see that how that reinforcement is actually working. Suppose if the reinforcement is like a tissue paper, that also fails. Then there is no point in reinforcing with a very weak material. So it's like it depends upon, generally the dimensions are decided based on the prototypes which are available. Otherwise, it should be possible in your equipment also. Second thing is that based on some possible dimensions, because if you are having, let us say, a pile foundation having a diameter from 0.6 meter to 2 meters, let us say, board cast in situ piles I'm talking. And if you are trying to model like a 5 mm or 1 mm needle, there's no point in modeling pile like a needle because you cannot do anything with that. So you have to see that you can do some instrumentation also. You can also see that actually the so-called particle size effects are minimal, and all these things are required to be considered even in doing and arriving at a dimensions of the model.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I think there are no other questions. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
We'll move on to the presentations. Now I request the first presentation is on ground improvement of soft soil using bamboo as flexible pile with stabilized lime soil pile cap encapsulated by GeoGrid and GeoTextile by Dr. M.K. Dev from the Civil Engineering Consultancy Services Private Limited, India. Over to Dr. Dev. Please share your presentation and start. Sir, may I request you please maintain your time. You have 8 minutes for the talk.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you. I want to personally thank the organizer, the session chair veteran Dr. Pradeep Kumar sir, the co-chairman Professor Dr. B. Janaki, and the wonderful keynote speaker from IIT Bombay, Dr. VBS Vishwanathan. Thank you very much, sir. I personally engaged. So coming to my presentation, I'd like to request your kind attention. This is the real field work that we have done in Agartala, Tripura, the first Agartala flyover in the state of Tripura, where some problems had come across. We had to come across some problems during the construction period itself. So we conducted works altogether involving a lot of organizations altogether, IIT Silchar, IIT Guwahati for laboratory testing, my own laboratory systems, Jadavpur universities, and all those. So my presentation will cover with respect to some few introduction of the site, about knowing the site, the problem identification, what the problems exactly we have faced. Then we have to put some design assumption for these innovations that we decided to put on. If you glimpse for the soil and material investigations, then the design basis, what is the basis of our design that we are projecting to get it implemented. We have conducted some model experiments. We'll show some results here, and we'll discuss on that. So this is particular the position of my state, Agartala. You can see for the international delegates, this is India, that exactly Agartala is. This is the state of Tripura. Now, if you see this slide carefully, you can see this is the 3-leg flyover. The first one is this Mallarmat flyover, this portion, and this having a sharp curve here. Then this is another leg going this way, and this is another one. These two portions we have introduced this particular ground improvement technique. One is Mallarmat and Sishubiak. This particular paper discuss about the this Mallarmat portion. Now, as I said, there was superstructure of vertical reinforced wall, RU wall, filled up with suitable sand, which we need to, which are exerting pressure on the grounds of soil. And these are facing panels vertically erected with a higher endurance reinforcing steel plate within. So we have to fix this unstable conditions so that there shall not be any settlement. And there is a special requirement of this type of structure is that it needs a flexible base. The base below this type of RE wall shall not be rigid one. So this is also a challenge that we have to take it forward. So what we have done, we have put a 3 section. If you see, the section 3 is 28.5 meter on the abutment side, and section 2 is 53.94, and section 1. So these are gradually actually meeting to the existing road level. So this is section 3 is the highest one. It's around 6 meter, 5.796 meter. And this is the section 2 around 4.67 meter is the highest at this point, and the section 1. So for this 3 section, we have different approach to make it. So this particular presentation that the paper that we discussed, we have put just some glimpse on that. This is a huge work that we have to carry forward with much detail. So just a historical background of this particular site. This is the site at the year 2004. If you can see, this is a shortcut. Then in the year 2020, after completion, then you can see this curve has been mild after the completion of the flyover, Agartala flyover. So our embankment approach is here. These are the concern area where we have put this thing, and we have encountered the soft soil problems here. Now there are some problems identification is that we have a very soft, sensitive clay, silty clay. The N values 1 to 3, C values are around 1.5 to 3.2 ton per meter square like this. And these are not uniform. These are varies in the depth. These are varies in the width also. So we have to conduct a lot of soil investigation in that time. So time constraints was the major problem because this particular soft soil problem was not addressed during the preparation of the DPR. So when the constructions was almost near to be accomplished, then they have encountered such problem and they have come forward with the Jadavpur University to us. So these are time constraints. Then we cannot put the things in hold and to go with the time. So that is the main constraints of the time. The conventional foundation system with the to put another superstructure slab span on that, it will induct a lot of cost because the 40-meter pile was there in the other span. So it is a huge cost. So ground improvement professional agency is very much rare in this Northeast India in our place. All who are there are from the outside and very much busy with the railway department and constructions and all those things. And those agencies are not available to get it done with a short time. Now existing city roads are there, over which that is the plan for the erection of this flyover. So that existing traffic movement shall not be interrupted. Both sides, at the ground level of this, at the road level, existing road level, both sides, there is a series of shops are there. So we do not have so much space to utilize for the making a amendment or providing a ground improvement techniques which will take it forward. So PBD also that we do not have so much expert professional agencies that are ready to get it done with no time. So now this is section 3. If you can see, this is section 2, section 1. So section 3 we have proposed this bamboo piling. Plus we are considering it's a flexible pile because of flexibility of bamboo during the compressive force, it will have a flexible. So then we have given lime mixed sand drain there, vertical sand drain there for this section 3, because this is a higher order. So now geotextile geogrid we have put. Then after that we have given 250 mm thick of viscose material. Then limestone stabilization for 500 mm thickness. Then above that we have put again the geogrid and geotextile, and we put all these things as a erected concrete wall, where we have inserted this bottommost geogrid and geotextile as well as uppermost geogrid and geotextile. So it's encapsulated so that during the loading, the lateral strain, the tensile strain will be there. It will be adjusted within this portion. Furthermore, for the soft soil, when it will be loaded, then the pile will be occur on that, and it will create further pressure within the ground, which will accelerate the real consolidation.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. We have 1 minute more.
Yes. So section 2 is for that we did not use that. Section 2 we did not use vertical sand drain, and section 1 we just used the bamboo piling. So limit state of serviceability that we addressed with respect to the bamboo to take the load then and then, and consolidation of subsoil in terms of limits of serviceability means catered by the consolidation processes through the vertical sand drain. So these are some pressures that we have calculated in the different positions, outer side, middle side, and both outside. So these are some pressure distribution. You can see the soil properties are there. Datum 1 is that design N is 0.3, although it is 1, 2, and 3 we have in contact. Then it is some dense soil, dense sand. So these are the conditions. So now these are some soil properties and lime properties, and you can see the specification of geogrid that we have used. Now we have used some specification of bamboo for the bamboo code, and we have used the Jai very and locally available bamboo material, and then we have used bamboo diameter of 50 mm to 95 mm in the varying side, and 3 meter to 5 meter in the various positions. So now these are the some simplified calculations that we have put, where we have just increased 1.5 times of the capacity of C value with respect to the bamboo piling effect, and due to the confinement of the reinforcement in the soil, and 1.5 times because of the vertical sand drain, limestone drain introduction. So we have got this thing, and we have found out the pile capacity around like this. So following BS 2006, we have consider 1.5 characteristics. So this is the model actually that you can see. The bamboo pile is there, the sand drain is there, then limestone stabilization is there. These are the engraving within the concrete wall, and the below limestone flexible pile below the audio wall. So these are the thing. These are the design proposal. So now what is the special about that design is that this cohesion range from 1.5 to 3.67. We have also considered alpha addition reduction factor for the piling 0.35, 0.4, 0.32 on that with respect to the cohesion below. Then we have a multiplying factor of 2.25 for the basic C value on that, and where that I already mentioned, and load factor already we have considered 1.3. So these are the plate load test, and the results, if you can see, almost 40 above ton per 40 ton per meter square with this settlement for the 9 pile. For the 6 pile with various pile load test results, you can see the recovery settlement. You can see on that field, which are due to the flexibility of the bamboo in nature. And
so can you the times up? Can you more?
Yes. Just I'm closing this very near to that. So we are having factor of safety attained 1.96. If you see, the red one is the section 3, and section 2 is the white one, and section 1 is the green one. So green one 1.96 factor of safety attained, where what we have actually considered factor of safety 1.35. So it is much more what we have designed consideration is there. Required pile capacity without factor is like 0.988. If we multiply it by 1.3, it is 1.284. And if we calculate the pile capacity unfactored, it is 1.94. So designed allowable pile capacity we have predicted 1.43, and actually we have got is 1.92. So these are the variations. If you can see our design assumptions that is validated by this type of model experiments, which we have decided to go for. So now these are the some steps. You can see the positions on piling, positioning of limestone stabilizations, and aggregates positions, position of the geogrid elements, and this will compaction levels, quality control. You can see some of peaks, some of movements there, some plate loop test experiments, and yeah. So
please conclusions, please.
Yes, yes. So now this is like this arrangement is practically actually now it's almost 3 years. So it is, there is no distress, and there is especially it is working very well. And the stabilized limestone of 1 meter thickness limestone drain, it can attain much more strength with respect to time what we have designed. The strength nowadays it is increased already. This new ground improvement system, yes, we understand that we prepare a lot of some numerical modeling to develop that. We are working on it. So these are the agencies which have the Yadavpur University, Nagarjuna Construction Company Limited, and some you can see in the screen. We have used all these 9 agencies to work together and made it possible to make this type of innovative product. So thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dev. Very nice presentation. Now I request the attendees and the audience to post the questions. Please post your questions in the Q&A box. Okay, we have got one question, sir, from Mr. Muhammad Abu. What will be the life of bamboo pile?
Look, bamboo pile, the life of bamboo pile depends upon its durability. We do not expect the below the earth, the life of bamboo pile will be huge. But what we experienced in our real life, that is bamboo in an alkaline environment, it's much durable, one thing. Another thing is that bamboo, if you can consider, we have used 2 meter ground from the existing ground level. We have put in 2 meter ground level. So as means below it is with the saturated conditions, bamboo is not so having so much negative impact in terms of durability. We have seen our childhood as well, but I feel that this particular, if it is a half moist conditions or moist condition, then the chances of bacterial growth and the microbe growths are there to impact the bamboo. But in this particular situation, we expect the consolidation should take place, which is we have assumed for the worst case 3 to 4 years. Already 3 years have gone. So after that consolidation, there is no impact on the bamboo, whether it is there or not. The soil itself has attained that strength to cater this load. But yes, of course, this particular yet to be researched that means the impact of bamboo under the saturated condition, how much it can be, what is the degree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, there are no other questions. Fine. We will move on to the other presentation. Thank you, Dr. Dev. The next presentation is on the effect of plasticity index on liquefaction behavior of silty clay by Sufyan Ghani, National Institute of Technology, Patna. Over to Mr. Ghani. Please share your presentation. The next presentation is on unconfined compressive strength of microbially induced calcite precipitation, treated black cotton soil by Ms. Rani from Government College of Engineering, Maharashtra. Please share your presentation, Ms. Rani.
Yes, sir.
Please share your presentation.
Very good afternoon to all. I am Rani Watt, going to present an unconfined compressive strength of MICP treated black cotton soil.
You're audible, madam.
Thank you, sir.
So put it in a slideshow mode. Yeah, please go ahead. You have already 1 minute.
These are the content of my presentation: introduction, materials, methodology, result and discussions, and references. So biomediated ground improvement is a relatively new and innovative environmental friendly method which is used in recent years for mitigating geotechnical problems So there are various methods are in practice also, but the for the improving the properties of the soil, but which of them are neither economical nor eco-friendly. So the microorganisms and their nutrients and biological processes may prove to eco-friendly solution to the soil improvement. So there are different methods for introducing the calcite in the soil within the soil particles. So microbial induced calcite precipitation in this work is the calcite is precipitated by using the urea hydrolysis mechanism. So MICP process has two major applications, that is bioclogging and biocementation. So bioclogging is that the pores of the soil particles which is clogged by introducing the calcite within it, and biocementation is that the cement, the calcite which is precipitated due to the microbial which is cemented around the soil particles, and this cementation which is covers all the surface of the soil particles, and thus known as the biocementation. So bioclogging and biocementation has two major applications in geotechnical engineering. So biocementation, which strengthen the sand or strengthen the soil particles, that is the improving the strength of the soil, but bioclogging, which reduces the permeability or permeability of the soil. The materials. So this is the soil, black cotton soil is used in this work. So this is free swell index, specific gravity, liquid limit 88%, plastic limit 43.33%. So plasticity index is 44.67%, shrinkage limit 7.52, density, dry density 1.44 gram per cc, optimum moisture content 29%. And this is the swelling pressure, the soil type as per IS code, that is the highly compressible. Then in the material section, the microorganism which is used or bacteria which is used, the Bacillus pasteurii. So cementation solution, again the third material, cementation solution is used. So this table number 3 shows the cementation solution contain NH4Cl, that is the ammonium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, then nutrient broth, urea, calcium chloride, and the pH of this the cementation solution should be 6. So this is the bacterial solution, this is cementation solution. This is the methodology, the bacterial concentration by the 5% by the weight of the soil, 5%, 10%, 15 and 20%, and the bacterial solution in the proper manner or in 5%, 10% or 15 or 20%, and the cementation solution is taken as the proportionate to the weight of the soil, and this soil the bacterial solution, cementation solution is mixed with the soil, and then prepared the sample for the further testing for the UCS, and then these samples are tested for the 0-day reaction period, that is the at instant testing, then kept for the 7 days reaction period, and also kept for the 14 days reaction period to check the effect of the microbial induced calcite precipitation on the soil. Then these are the results. The reaction period for the 0, 3, 7, 14 and 21 days. Then the bacterial concentration. So this picture shows the untreated soil and treated soil. So treated soil shows the calcite which is precipitated over all the soil sample. Then this graph shows the relation between strain and stress for the 5% bacterial concentration. So according to the reaction period, the unconfined compressive strength is increases So here for 5% bacterial concentration, 7 days reaction period gives the higher strength. Seven days reaction period for 5% bacterial concentration gives the higher strength as a 623 kilonewton per meter square. Then this graph shows the 10% bacterial concentration, the stress-strain relationship, and in this case, here we can see the 14 days reaction period gives the higher strength as compared to the untreated, as compared to the 0, 3 and 7 days reaction period, and after 14 days, the 7 days reaction period gives the higher strength. For 15% bacterial concentration, again 14 days reaction period is suitable when the bacterial solution is 15%. Then for the 20%, the 14 days reaction period is required for when the bacterial concentration is 20%, and it gives the higher strength as compared to the 0, 3 and 7 days reaction period.
Madam, we have 1 minute more.
So these are the conclusions. The unconfined compression strength, which is increases for all bacterial concentrations than untreated soil. The unconfined compressive strength, which is increases with reaction period for higher concentration of bacteria. For black cotton soil, 5% bacterial concentration was found to be optimum concentration, and 7 days as the optimum reaction period to achieve maximum strength. The use of MICP, microbial-induced calcite precipitation, as a stabilization agent for black cotton soil would be green, sustainable and eco-friendly technique. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rani. That was right on time. Thanks for sticking to time. A nice presentation. Now I welcome the audience for any questions. You can place the questions on Q&A box. In the meantime, I have one question, madam. The results you have presented are out of how many samples were tested for each,
Three samples.
Yeah, the results you have shown are the average or the typical?
Average of them.
Yeah, I request the audience to place the questions in the Q&A session, Q&A box.
Yeah, no questions there also, no questions.
I'm waiting if they are typing, so, okay. There are no other questions. We will move on to the next presentation. Mr. Gani, if you are ready, we can take up your presentation.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible. Please go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, sir.
Sharing.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sufyan Gani. I am from NIT Patna, and I will be presenting on the topic Effect of Plasticity Index on Liquefaction Behavior of Silty Clay. This is the presentation outline. So the liquefaction occurs when a saturated or partially saturated soil transforms to a liquefied state due to the application of cyclic loads. In other words, liquefaction is an incident or a phenomena during which soil suddenly loses its strength and starts behaving like a viscous fluid. Most commonly, liquefaction occurs as a result of ground shaking during high-intensity earthquakes. Soil liquefaction is a major design consideration for various civil engineering structures. An evaluation of liquefaction potential of soil has been studied by many researchers over the past few decades. In India, currently, we have an IS 1893 Part 1 2016 is an empirical formulation that has been widely used to evaluate liquefaction behavior of soil. This liquefaction of soil has been categorized into two parts, that is flow liquefaction and cyclic mobility. Flow liquefaction doesn't often very likely to take place, but as compared to cyclic mobility, but its effects are generally far more severe. This is the mechanism of liquefaction. Initially, there is an increase in pore water pressure that leads to the reduction of effective stress. The transfer of intergranular stress takes place from soil grains to pore water. When this transfer completes, soil loses its strength completely and exhibits a liquid behavior. Due to this loss of strength, consolidation starts, which is followed by the surface settlement, leading to the sinking of structures resting on it. When liquefaction develops at some depth, the excess pore water pressure in the liquefied zone will dissipate in upward direction. This upward flow induces liquefied conditions in the surface layers of the soil deposits. Therefore, onset of liquefaction in any zone or depth may lead to liquefaction of the other zone, making it one of the most disastrous phenomena. Liquefaction, the first step of liquefaction hazard evaluation is usually the evaluation of liquefaction susceptibility. If the soil at a particular site is not susceptible to liquefaction, hazard evaluation is stopped. However, if soil is susceptible to liquefaction, the matters of liquefaction initiation and effects must be addressed. The criteria by which liquefaction is determined are historical criteria, geological, compositional, and state criteria. These are the few very famous techniques that have been adopted for liquefaction mitigation sites. This is vibro-flotation, dynamic compaction, stone columns are few of the most prominent methods. Now I'll just give you a brief literature hint of the present study. It was generally believed that the presence of fine content, whether plastic or non-plastic, help in resisting liquefaction susceptibility. But this belief changed after a series of fine-grained soil liquefied during Northridge, Kosili, Chichi, and Bhuj earthquake in respective years. Thus, the response of fine soil deposits under dynamic loading became an important field of study and research. Literature suggests that interdependency exists between plasticity and cyclic strength of the soil. Therefore, the use of plasticity index as a key criteria for evaluating the liquefaction susceptibility of fine-grained soil was extensively studied. These are the various researchers have proposed different range of plasticity that defines soil susceptibility to liquefaction. But as you can see that there is a different range, there is a variation in the different ranges of plasticity and liquid limit according to different researchers. So the objective of the study was to evaluate the liquefaction susceptibility of soil using IS codes for river Ganges alluvial soil deposits. This area is significant in terms of economy, population, as well as it falls under seismic zone 4 according to IS code. Furthermore, the same site is evaluated using a Chinese criteria. This criteria was proposed based on the plasticity based methods to compare the results derived from both the approaches to establish a significant evaluation for liquefaction susceptibility based on the plasticity index. These are the methods. This is a basic equation that has been used for determining the CSR, that is cyclic stress ratio, CRR, cyclic resistance ratio, and the corresponding ratio provides us with a factor of safety. And if factor of safety is greater than 1, the soil is termed to be safe, and if it is less than 1, it is termed to be unsafe and prone to liquefaction. And this is the plasticity based study, that is Chinese criteria. So as you can see, these are the 4 different criteria that were mentioned by Wang in 1979 that said that if any of the soil fulfilled these 4 criteria, that is liquid limit is less than 35%, liquidity index is greater than 0.75, natural water content to liquid limit ratio is greater than 0.9, and percent passing from 0.05 mmC is less than 15%, will undergo liquefaction. Any of the soil apart from this criteria will not liquefy. In the present study, we have 2 different boreholes, so their factor of safety were determined using the IS code methods, and you can see that more or less the site is prone to liquefaction. The factor of safety is lesser on is less to 1. The Chinese criteria mainly focuses on soil with plasticity. So in the present borehole, we have certain layers that were plastic and certain layers that were non-plastic. So for further analysis, the non-plastic layers were eliminated, and this is the overall tabular representation of the data that we have achieved. So for borehole 1, we have depths of 9 meter, 12 meter, and 13.5 meter with factor of safety less than 1, and all of them are susceptible to liquefaction. Table 2 shows the soil parameter of these layers, that's the plasticity index, fine content range, water content to liquid limit ratio. Further, this was the graph that was proposed by ASTM, American Standard of Testing Material, based on Chinese criteria proposed by Wang in 1979. So you can see that you have water content on the x-axis and the liquid limit on the y-axis, and then the graph, the line we have achieved divides the graph into liquefiable and non-liquefiable zones. So based on this, you can see that all the plastic area falls under the non-liquefiable zone. So this tabular representation has table 3 presents the liquefaction evaluation as per Chinese criteria. So the similar soil that was susceptible to liquefaction by IS code is now safe against liquefaction when we are considering different input parameters over there. So this table 4 is a comparison between, you can see the complete opposite results are achieved. So this is what it explains that the table 3 clearly embarks that the plastic soil layers become non-susceptible to liquefaction when evaluated using Chinese criteria. In some cases, it gives significant results as compared to IS 1893 Part 1 2016 code, particularly for soil with plasticity. This directs that consideration of plasticity may play an important role in evaluation of liquefaction, susceptibility of fine-grained soil. It can be observed from the table that liquefaction potential of soil deposits evaluated using the IS code and are totally contradictory with the Chinese criteria. So more on the conclusion that the natural variability of soil conditions on the bank of Ganga River on Patna district, Bihar, allows significant study focusing on soil plasticity to figure out liquefiable deposits. It is evaluated that soil with higher level of plasticity is found to undergo different kind of deformations under cyclic loading as compared to those with lower level of plasticity. The present analysis clearly indicates that the considered soil deposits are liquefiable as per IS code, whereas for Chinese criteria they are non-liquefiable. This signifies that considering plasticity, water content, liquid limit, and fine content as governing criteria may provide an alternative response. There is no clear demarcation of plasticity in these empirical methods. Considering plasticity for soil evaluation response has resulted in totally contradictory observations as compared to the approaches, and construction of structure on liquefiable zones require a great amount of investment. So, if plasticity is believed to be major discriminating criteria in the above mentioned case, it can be inferred that the sites which possess said to undergo liquefaction will lie in non-liquefiable zone, thus contributing to a huge saving in the cost of construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ghani. Well, I request the audience for any questions. You can place it on Q&A box. Can you please type the questions in the Q&A box if you have any questions? Okay, in the meantime, we have a couple of questions from the previous presentation. That is, Mr. Abhay Sarkar has asked a question to Ms. Rani on her presentation. The question is, how do you store the bacteria? Ms. Rani, would you like to respond to that question? Okay, there are no other questions. Okay, we'll move on to the other presentation. In the meantime, please type your questions. We'll take it up towards the end of it. The next presentation is, thank you, Mr. Ghani. The next question is, the topic is effect of sulfate contamination on lime stabilized black cotton soil by Ms. Shivanshi from Manipal University, Jaipur. Over to Ms. Shivanshi.
Thank you.
Please share your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Good afternoon to all. This is Shivanshi, along with authors Dr. Arvind Kumar Jha, Assistant Professor, IIT Patna, Mr. Ankush Kumar Jain, PhD Scholar, and Dr. Parvez Akhtar, Assistant Professor, Manipal University, Jaipur. I am here to present on the title Effect of Sulfate Contamination on Lime Stabilized Black Cotton Soil. Moving to the next slide, outlines of presentation. So here, introduction, background, literature review, objective, motivation of work, material, methodology, results and discussions, conclusion and the references will be discussed in the following presentation. Starting with the introduction, so soil stabilization. Since the title itself describes that it is a soil stabilization, so why there is a necessity of soil stabilization is that it alters the physical and chemical behavior of soil if it is problematic. So it improves the engineering behavior of soil in terms of its strength, permeability, compressibility, and its swell behavior. So basically it improves the behavior of natural soil if it is problematic, and that will be suitable for the construction practices. So necessity of soil stabilization or the need of soil stabilization is to provide strong and stable base foundation and to prevent it from damages or future failures, so that loss of life and structure can be prevented, and to prevent uncertainties of behavior with varying moisture and temperature. Moving to the background, so different methods of soil stabilizations are there. including mechanical, chemical, fiber reinforcement, stabilization using different waste materials like plastic, rubber, and husk, ashes, etc. Bituminous and asphalt stabilization and grouting and columnar injection. So different methods of stabilization there. And for the present study, I chose chemical stabilization because of its benefits. Other methods are also applicable, depends upon the type of soil and other factors as well. But here I took chemical stabilization, which is very efficient, effective, and a smaller quantity of chemical is used for so. So along with other methods, there is a need to alter the properties of soil at a microscopic level. So it behaves well with the problematic soil. So the deflections and the damages and differential movements that are going to occur can be reduced. So the lime I'm using here in the chemical stabilization. So lime is very popular, very efficient, most widely used, is commonly available, and it causes permanent alteration in the clay structure, and it also provides strength and durability for a long term. So basically it is very effective, and researchers also support this right from the 1960s around, and it is also used along with pairing with the other materials also. So this strengthening is achieved by the development of, you can see that cementitious compounds or pozzolanic compound, that CSHs and CAH. These compounds, calcium silicate hydrate and calcium aluminate hydrate, these compounds are formed in the lime stabilization. So basically soil can be stabilized by using lime. This is a proven thing. Now moving to the sulfatic soil. So now from here onwards, I am going to discuss the problems, where the problem comes. So sulfatic soils, or sometimes it is known as gypsiferous soil, gypseous soil, sulfate bearing soil. So these are the terminology used for sulfatic soil. So these are the soil which contains sulfates. Actually, sulfate is a compound that originates from from any source like sodium sulfate, calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate. This sulfate brings problems in the lime stabilized soil. That title defines. So sulfatic content, it is a major concern that it is extended, if we talk about the world, it is extended more than 20% of land. And if we talk about India, it covers 0.06% of land, and majorly it is concentrated in the semi-arid regions of Rajasthan and Gujarat states. So it is a alarming factor for the lime stabilization, and especially if sulfate is present in the soil itself, or sulfate is migrated from any other source like river or any precipitation or any industrial waste. It can accumulate in the soil and can cause disruptions. So problems of lime stabilized to sulfatic soil, that when lime treated soil comes in contact with sulfate, this sulfate can come from anywhere, like it itself present in soil, it can come from anywhere else. So when lime treated soil comes in contact with sulfate in presence of water or gypsy soil treated with lime, it causes distress, result in the formation of heaves. Heaves is the bulging out of the that area, that soil, it because of the expansion or swelling. So this is known as sulfate induced heave. I will also discuss in the next slide the sulfate induced heave, and this formed due to the formation of expensive compound that are known as ettringite or thomsite, that are also formed depending upon many other factors. So this is the problem basically. This is what happened, that even we have stabilized the expensive soil with the lime, the lime stabilized soil again showed disruption when sulfate enters in it. So why it happens in the lime stabilized soil? This is a study area actually. So lime is also calcium based stabilized. It means that when expensive soil having sulfatic compounds, it questions the validity of calcium based stabilization, and which we are talking lime here. So here we can understand mechanism of sulfate induced heaves, that when calcium from lime, alumina silicate from soil, sulfate from sulfatic compound in presence of water make a complex reaction and form ettringite and thomsite. So these the chemical formula, you can also see that 26 molecules in ettringite is held up by that ettringite molecule, and 24 thomsite, and these are formed depending upon temperature and capacity. You can also see ettringite can swell up upon around 137%, and these two images show the bulging or sulfate induced heave that happened, and these cause damages of the subgrade failure. Okay, So literature review includes, right, you can see that different researchers contributed in the study of saying that lime stabilization is very efficient and effective developing pozzolanic compounds. And you can also see that around 2000, right from 1992, 2014, 16, and 2018, and this is also current research also, that sulfate-induced heave are occurred due to the formation of ettringite, and these are expensive expansion-causing minerals, and depends upon the many factors like temperature and alkaline or acidic environment. So these are the reasons why when it developed, and it caused distresses even in the lime stabilized. So this is main concern. Okay, moving to the motivation. So huge economical losses are caused due to sulfate induced, and research findings regarding the geotechnical behavior of soil are still inconsistent and insufficient due to high sulfatic content accumulated in the majority of soil of Rajasthan, and controlling mechanism for change in behavior due to migration of sulfate contaminated water given to stabilized soil are not well understood yet, and guidelines to stabilize sulfate bearing soils are also not available. So from this problem statement and the background study, the objectives are to find out the geotechnical behavior of untreated soil and lime treated soil, lime stabilized soil. It means the two of the samples are compared: untreated soil on the with sulfate contamination and lime stabilized with sulfate contamination. And for sulfate contamination is generated in the laboratory by using sodium sulfate. Sodium sulfate is used because of its highest solubility. So these are the material methodology. The soil we have used is expensive soil, which is black cotton soil, which is collected from the areas of Jaipur, Rajasthan. And second, additive or admixture used for stabilization of the expensive soil is lime, and which is used as a 6%. 6% is extracted for our study by conducting pH test as per the method of Eads in 1966. Third, sulfatic contamination agent is sodium sulfate here. And different molar solutions right from 1000 to 30,000 are prepared. And so these are the methodologies.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. So these are the properties of untreated and lime treated soil. So here from the table you can see that the engineering behavior is improved when lime is added in the soil. So these are the comparison table, and XRD and SEM is also explained for identification of the parent material. So these are the graphs of TG and FTR of parent material. So these are the results and discussion. Effect of sulfate contamination at a Burke's limit. You can see from the graph that liquid limit of lime treated soil are higher than that of untreated soil. That must not be happened. It happens due to the addition of sulfate contamination with the progression of sulfate. So increase in sulfating concentration, however, has a minimal influence in the liquid limit of both. And PI of untreated soil increases at any sulfatic concentration as compared to lime treated soil. Okay. Yes. MDD of untreated soil are high, and OWC of untreated soil pronounces lesser value as compared to lime treated soil. This reduction in MDD of lime treated soil is due to the increase in the DDL and the formation of ettringite crystal, which acted as reinforcing material that can withstand the higher compacting effect. And due to the higher absorption or accumulation of the water molecules, OWC raises. Effect of sulfate contamination on free soil index. That increase in free soil index of our untreated and lime treated soil can easily be seen due to the formation of ettringite. So from these studies, the conclusion are: first, the sulfate contamination adversely affects the behavior of untreated and lime treated, especially lime treated soil. Second, the plasticity index of untreated soil reduces with lime treatment of soil, contaminating with varying sulfatic concentration. And liquid limit, plasticity or lime treated soil are observed to be more. Third, sulfatic contamination has pronounced and minor influence on the compaction characteristics of untreated and lime treated soil. However, maximum dry density of lime treated soil reduced with the increase in OWC upon sulfatic contamination. Fourth, free soil index of untreated and lime treated soil increase continuously with the progression of sulfatic contamination. This is due to the formation of expensive mineral ettringite. That cause rapid swell in lime treated soil. So these are the references. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Shivanshi. Nice presentation. I request for any queries from the audience. If you have any questions on this presentation, you can type it in Q&A box. Okay, in the meantime, Ms. Rani, would you like to respond to the previous question? Ms. Rani, there are 2 questions on your presentation. Okay, even we have about 2 to 3 minutes time is there. For any of the presentation, you still can put the questions. By the way, we do not have the last presentation that is not getting presented. Okay, Dr. Srivalsa?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there are no other questions I see here.
You can summarize and wind it up.
Yeah. Thank you, first of all the participants for your nice work. It's all this research work doesn't come for free. After a huge amount of hard work, you will get to this point. And we have a wide range of topics being covered in this session, ranging from the sustainable ground improvement technique to the recent advanced topics such as MICP has been presented. The bamboo, particularly the application of bamboo in terms of sustainability for the ground improvement of soft clay was presented by Dr. Also, the effect of plasticity index has been reviewed and applied for a site in near across the river Ganga has also been analyzed by Mr. Ghani from NIT Patna. And we also have looked into the effect of the treatment of expansive soils by MICP, microbially induced calcite precipitation technique, through the testing called the unconfined compressive strength has been presented by Ms. Rani. And also we have seen the presentation by Ms. Shivanshi on the effect of sulfate contamination on lime stabilized black cotton soils. So all of them have been well presented, and I congratulate all the participants and thank you for their contribution in this conference. Thank you one and all. Now I request our session chair to provide a concluding remarks. Over to Dr. Pradeep.
Dr. Ramaiah, I am thankful to you. Is it audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is from my side, it is a vote of thanks you have already proposed. So I am thankful to all the authors and Professor Janki Ramaiah and Professor Srivalsa for organizing such a excellent session. And I am personally thankful to the state-of-the-art paper presented by Professor Vishwanathan. So from my side, it is everybody is deserve appreciation. So let us extend our thanks to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. I think Dr. Srivalsa, there is another presentation at 4:30 by Professor Kenneth Stokey, right?
Yes. So on behalf of organizing committee, I thank the chairperson, Dr. Pradeep Kumar, and co-chair Dr. Janaki Ramaiah for very efficiently conducting this session. We are exactly on time, just 4 o'clock. So thank you very much for managing the time very effectively. And thanks to all the presenters and the SOAP lecture speaker, Professor Vishwanathan. So thanks once again to chair and co-chair, and thank you all. Please join us, Dr. Janaki Ramaiah informed. Please join the plenary hall lecture at 4:30 in plenary hall in the 3D platform. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, I'm closing the session.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you.